Hello everyone, today I'm going to solve LeetCode problem number 886, possible bar partition. In this problem we are given n people. We need to split these people into two groups such that no group consists of people who dislike each other. That is, people who dislike each other should be in different groups. Now here we are given input is n equals to 4, which means there are 4 people, each of them starting labeled from 1 to 4, and this is an array of dislikes where each element represents the people who dislike each other. So here 1 dislikes 2 and 2 dislikes 1 as well. In this case 1 dislikes 3 and 3 dislikes 1, and here 2 dislikes 4 and vice versa. Now we need to group together these elements, and if we are able to group them together, then we return a true, else we return false. Basically group into two different groups. So let's see how we could solve this problem. In this given example here we have 4 people, right? Each of the people are labeled as 1, 2, 3 and 4, and in this array we know that 1 dislikes 2 and 2 dislikes 1, so these two should go into two different groups, right? So what we do is let's just look how our group is going to form. So 1 and 2 are in different groups. Now again 1 dislikes 3, so different groups for these two. Since 1 is in this group, so 3 should be in a different group, right? Again 2 and 4, since we have 2 in this group, so 4 should be in a different group, so we group it in this group, and this is how we are able to form the group, and we return a true. Now in this case we have 3 people and 1 dislikes 2, so 2 groups for each of these, and then 1 dislikes 3, so different groups for 1 and 3, so 3 will go here. Now 2 dislikes 3 as well, but we can see like 2 and 3 are grouped in the same group, which means that these two could not exist together, but they are in the same group here, which means we are not able to group them separately, so we'll return a false. Now let's see how we are actually going to solve this arithmetically, because this was just like an intuitive process. So to solve this arithmetically, what we are going to do is we are going to use depth first search, and for that we need to create an adjacency matrix which consists of all the people disliked by the person I. So we have since we have 4 people, so we'll have adjacency matrix with 4 different indices. Each index represents the people, and we'll also have a 0 index, but we are not going to use it because there is no person labeled 0. So now we are going to use each of these indices as person, and person 1 it dislikes 2, person number 2 and person number 3, right? So it dislikes 2 and 3, so this will be our adjacency matrix for 1. For 2, our adjacency matrix will be 1 and 4, right? So we have these two elements here, and person 3 it dislikes person number 4, I mean person number 1, so we have the value 1 here. And for 4 it dislikes 2, so we'll have the value 2 here. Now what we do is we start from 1, since we are performing depth first search, so we basically build a tree and then we traverse over one of its branch as long as we have reached the very end of the branch, and then we go back to the next backtrack and we go to the next branch, right? So that is what we are going to do here. So let's create a tree first. So how will our tree look like? So 1, starting from 1, since it dislikes 2 and 3, so we'll have 2 different branches, each of 2 different people, and then for 2 it dislikes 1, right? But we already have 1, so since it is already pointing to 1, it already has a connection to 1, so we only have one branch, which is branch number 4. For 3 it dislikes 1, so we have a 1, and for 4 it dislikes 2, so we already have that branch created, right, between 2 and 4. So this is how our tree will look like. Now what are we going to do is we are going to assign values to each of the each of its neighbors. So we are going to group them. So I'm just going to use the values 0 and 1 to group them into two different groups. So to group in group 0 and in group 1. So we start from the first person, which is person number 1, and we assign a value 0 to it. Next I move on to its leftmost branch, which is person 2, and since 1 dislikes 2, so it should be in a different group, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to assign it a group number 1 because it dislikes this person, and this person is group 0, so it cannot be in group 0, right? Now I move it to the next branch again, which is 4, and what I do is I assign it to group 0. And then since there is no more branches, so I backtrack and I go to the branch number 3, and here, since it also dislikes person number 0, so it will be assigned to the group 1. And since we are able to assign each of the group with different values, so as you could see, like the neighbors, each age represents that these two dislike each other, and since one dislike 2 and both of them have different values, right, this has a value 0, this has a value 1, this has a value 0, so consecutively it should be alternate 0 1 0 1. So since we are able to assign the values, we return a true. And in the case, let's see here, so when do we return a false? So we are also going to do the same. We are going to perform a DFS. So before that, we create a matrix. 1 dislikes 2 and 1 also dislikes 3. 2 dislikes, what does 2 dislike? 2 dislikes 1 and 2 dislikes 3. So 2 dislikes 1 and 3 as well. And 3 dislikes 1 and 2, both of them. Now what we do is start from the value 1, and it has two neighbors, I mean 2 people who it dislikes. So we are going to create 2 branches for 1, and we assign the value 0 to 1. And now since what we do is we have not grouped 2 and 3 yet, right? So we are going to group it to the what we do is we move to the leftmost branch and we group this value different than this value. So I'm gonna group these to group number 1 because it should be different than the person it dislikes. All right, so for 2 it dislikes 1, but we have already we already came from 1, and 1 is already assigned the value, like it's already in a different group, so we do not need to go back again, because if we do that, then we are gonna get stuck in a loop, so we don't go back there. Now next we need we go, the next person it dislikes is 3, right? So we create a new branch and the value 3, but 3 already exists here, right? So why are we creating a new branch? So let's just join this to 3. So when we join this to 3, what happens is we need to assign a value different than the value that is assigned to 1, right? That is assigned to 2. So we assign the value 0 here. Now what happens is for 3, I try to go to its next neighbor, which is 1, but what happens when I check the value, both of them have the value 0. So since both of them are in the same group, which is that both 1 dislikes 3 and 3 dislikes 1, but they are in the same group, so this means that we are not able to create a distinct group, and hence we return a false. So that is how our algorithm will be like. So now let's dive into coding. So since we need an adjacency matrix, so I'm going to create an adjacency matrix. Okay, oops, array, right, of length n+1, and then cool, and then I assign all the dislikes, people that dislikes, right? So starting from the dislikes, for let d of, so 0, d0 dislikes d1, right? So I'm gonna push. Okay, what just happened? So this will create our adjacency matrix, and now we need to group different different people in different groups, right? So this will represent which group each of the people belong to, and this will also be of size n+1. We are not actually going to use the index 0. So now let me create my DFS function. Index represents the person, and for, so of that person we are going to loop over each of the neighbors. That is, we are going to go over each of the branch. We are going to perform the DFS, right? So let C of adjacency matrix I, so all the neighbors, each of the element, what we do is we first check if the color of both of them are same, then we return false. This is the case here. This is like the case here where the child, I mean the neighbor of 3, right? One of the branches is 1 and 2, other is 2, right? And since branch 1 is of the same color, so that is they dislike each other but they are of same color, so we return a false because we are not able to group them separately. And then again, if we check if the color of the element, that is if it is not assigned any color, then what we do is we are going to perform the DFS. Because if it is assigned a color, like in this case, what happens is 1, I move to branch 2, right? Let me just create here from branch 1, I move to branch 2, I assigned color 0 to 1, and then since 2 is dislikes 1, so I assign a different color, which is color 1 to 2. And since 2 dislikes 1 and 4, to avoid creating another branch and again going back to 1, because 1 then like we'll be stuck in a loop. So we have already traversed 1, right? So since we already have the color of person 1, so we do not need to go there. If it is not assigned any color, that is if it is not grouped, only then we perform the DFS on that one. So what we do is before performing the DFS, we assign the color to that person which is equals to a different color than its neighbor, its parent, right? Because they dislike each other, so this would be in different group. And then I perform the DFS and also while performing the DFS, if the value returned is a false, then we are just going to return, okay, if return false, because we are not able to group them separately. Else what we do is we return true. And I'm gonna perform the DFS call for each of the person, like person 1 starting from 1 and should be less than equals to n, and we are only going to do that if that person is not yet grouped. That is, if the color is equals to -1, then perform DFS. And if the value returned is a false, then we are just going to return false. We do not proceed further. Else, if it is true, then we keep on proceeding further, grouping all the people, and then finally, if everyone is able, that is, if we are able to group everyone together, then we return a true, else we return a false. Oh no, so what's wrong here? We returned a true here. Okay, so I need to fill them all with value -1. So I created an adjacency matrix and then finally pushed the person that they disliked and created a color array DFS function for each of its children neighbor. If the color matched, then return false because they should be different, and if it is not matched to any color, then assign a color. Oh yeah, so I also need to assign a color here as well, because if it is not assigned any color so far, then I need to assign a color to it. Equals to 0, assign a color 0. Cool, let's submit it. Great.